Social Security turns 90 this year, and that is just proof positive that it is unrivaled in the pantheon of U.S. social programs.
Social Security is the bedrock of financial security in America. Full stop.
We're celebrating its 90th birthday, a federal program that has lifted more people out of poverty than any other federal program ever devised.
And it's important to know the history of Social Security in particular, because when it was introduced, the government noticed that the economy was in a state of disarray. Political turmoil was high.
Social Security is such an important program. It's not just older adults, it's even children of deceased workers, people with disabilities.
We all worked, and we all paid into Social Security, knowing that when our work ended, that we would have some income.
Social Security is one of the most dependable things that we have.
For 90 years, it's been part of the social fabric of America.
Social Security was intended to make American life fairer and make people more secure.
Thank God for Social Security.
I, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, so help me God.
I believe that FDR was critical in creating so many things in the New Deal, and he was committed to the creation of Social Security. It would have been a long time before we got to it if he hadn't been able to get it done.
Today, a hope of many years standing is in large part fulfilled.
I'm Jim Roosevelt. My grandparents were President Franklin D. Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt.
The civilization of the past 100 years, with its startling industrial changes, has tended more and more to make life insecure.
When this was primarily an agrarian economy, several generations of a family lived in the same farmhouse. And there was not the easy and obvious distinction between those who could work for pay and those who could not. As the industrialization of America took place, when people reached an age that they could not be hired by employers anymore to support themselves, there just wasn't anything to provide for their food, their clothing, and their housing.
I'm Nancy Altman, president of Social Security Works. I've been working on Social Security for the last 50 years. The United States was a latecomer to the concept of social insurance. It started in Germany in the 1880s, and then other countries quickly followed suit. It really took the Great Depression for the United States to finally jump in and enact its own social insurance, Social Security.
Bill Arnone interviewed, take one.
I'm Bill Arnone. I'm the founding board member of the National Academy of Social Insurance, which was created about 40 years ago. Social insurance is a way to provide protection against risks that face all of us, regardless of income or wealth or assets. It's a public program. The government pools resources. In this case, the resources are contributions you make to Social Security while you're working, and once you receive it, it's yours for the rest of your life.
5 years of post-war depression impoverished our fortunes. The result, over 10 million workers lost their jobs. The aged, the blind, and dependent children were forced to fall back on private charity and local government organizations. But local resources were not enough to provide adequate, regular assistance.
Before Social Security, you had elderly people literally living in poorhouses.
Old people were in desperate straits, and it was in the middle of an economic calamity that made things worse. Even if you had savings, they were gone.
There was a doctor in Long Beach, California, in the midst of the Depression. His name was Dr. Francis Townsend. He was looking out his window and he saw an old woman rummaging through the garbage trying to look for food. He was so upset that he wrote a letter to his local paper setting out a possible plan.
The purpose of the plan is to compel the government of the United States to retire all citizens above the age of 60 who can qualify with a buying power of $200 per month.
The doctor's program swept the country, and in the first 2 years of its existence, the Townsend plan gained millions of adherents over 60.
It was not a plan that really would have worked, and Congress knew that, but it did help to get the votes to enact Social Security.
My name is Catherine Ann Edwards. I'm a PhD economist, and I'm an economic policy consultant and researcher. It's very hard for us to conceive of a world before Social Security, when most of us had the retirement plan of either dying on the job or dying in a child's house, in a back room.
Clearly, FDR and his administration found that unacceptable and felt like they had to do something about it.
I pledge myself to a new deal for the American people.
Franklin Roosevelt came at the exact right time for our country. He was well-educated, very shrewd. Franklin Roosevelt had a kind of humility that came from his polio, and he really responded to those who are most vulnerable in our society.
He was brilliant, masterful. He was a great salesman and a doer.
This nation is asking for action, and action now.
He also had a very good wife, Eleanor Roosevelt, who was his conscience.
There are many things that are not perfect in our country, many things that we want to change.
My grandmother was my grandfather's eyes and ears. She traveled around the country when he couldn't do that. So she told him what she saw out there. She told him about the people in poverty, the people in need.
There is still today a frontier that remains unconquered. This is the great, the nationwide frontier of insecurity.
President Franklin Roosevelt established an interagency task force, a committee on economic security. He put it together in June of 1934, and it was supposed to finish its work by the end of that year. And that's what led to Social Security, which was enacted just 9 months after that.
When FDR assumes the presidency in 1933, he begins by making an unprecedented appointment. As his Secretary of Labor, FDR appoints the First Lady Cabinet member in history.
It is hoped that we may put ourselves on a rational basis, both for recovery out of this depression and for preventing in the future this peculiar phenomenon of depression following periods of high production and high prosperity.
My grandfather made Frances Perkins Secretary of Labor, and she made a condition of taking that job that he would let her help design a Social Security system and get it enacted.
President Roosevelt chose Frances Perkins to lead the Committee on Economic Security. Their mission was to devise programs promoting the economic well-being of all Americans, including Social Security.
Thank God for Frances Perkins. She made a real difference in how Social Security was developed.
I'm standing in front of the brick house that was built in 1837 for Frances Perkins' grandmother. We're here in Maine on the banks of the Damariscotta River. This property, the Perkins Homestead, is a tribute to Frances Perkins and her remarkable life and the importance of this place to her. I'm Giovanna Gray Lockhart, the Executive Director of the Frances Perkins Center, the official partner of the Frances Perkins National Monument in Newcastle, Maine. Frances Perkins started her career as a social worker. She saw firsthand the inequities that working people, immigrants, particularly women and children, and how they were impacted by the Great Depression and the lack of a safety net in America. I've got this box here that contains Frances Perkins' hard hat. In 1911, Frances Perkins witnessed with her own eyes the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, where hundreds of young women and immigrants jumped to their death. This is the moment that Frances Perkins decided that she was going to devote the rest of her life to protecting workers, protecting the poor in the United States. This is the typewriter that was gifted to her by her colleagues at the Department of Labor when she left. I'm told it still works. We would not have Social Security today without Frances Perkins. She was behind the scenes. She was the one that FDR trusted to get done.
She was the ultimate arrow in the quiver for getting the Social Security Act passed.
When Social Security was being debated in 1935, conservatives had very colorful attacks on Social Security. They, of course, called it socialism, but they also said that it was going to bring down the pillars of our democracy. It was going to crush us.
From the start, there were ideologues who were on the right of the spectrum who just didn't want the government involved in anything. Let Americans rely on rugged individualism. That's the essence of America.
The largest tax bill in history. And to call it Social Security is a fraud on the working man.
Frances Perkins had the ability to talk across different stakeholders like employers and workers and understand what was at risk from continuing to be in conflict.
Legend has it that Frances Perkins got all of the parties that were necessary to pass this bill around the table. And she put a bottle of scotch in the middle and said, "We're not leaving here until this gets done."
President Franklin Roosevelt used every opportunity he could to push for the enactment of the Social Security Act.
The nation's lawmakers passed an act to safeguard the security of American workers and their families, the Social Security Act, with an overwhelming nonpartisan vote.
This is a great photo of my grandfather, Franklin D. Roosevelt, signing the Social Security Act in August of 1935. Most importantly and significantly, over his shoulder is the main mover behind the creation of many of the details of Social Security, Secretary of Labor Frances Perkins.
We can never insure 100% of the population against 100% of the hazards and vicissitudes of life, but we have tried to frame a law which will give some measure of protection to the average citizen and to his family against poverty-stricken old age.
Interview with Max Richmond.
I'm Max Richmond, President and CEO of the National Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare. From the very beginning, FDR made sure that Social Security was a benefit Americans felt that they had earned.
It was extremely important to President Roosevelt that his Social Security plan would be one where workers earn their benefits through contributions from their wages. He wanted it to be completely self-financed, and that's part of his genius. It's part of the reason I believe today that the American people understand that Social Security is not a handout, it's a benefit that they have paid for and earned.
26 million of the men and women now employed build up benefit rights entitling them to receive from the federal government monthly incomes for life up to $85 per month when they retire at 65 years of age or over.
Take one.
I'm Tracy Groniger. I'm the Managing Director of Economic Security and Housing at Justice and Aging. Social Security is an earned benefit. People work for their entire lives and pay into this program, and we have to make sure that it's there for them when they are ready to retire or they become disabled.
Anybody who's paying into that pot should benefit from getting Social Security, period, point blank. That's just non-negotiable. That should not be touched because you need that for people to survive.
You work most of your life and hoping to get some out of it, which I did, and I'm grateful for it.
When people asked my grandfather about why Social Security was structured to be paid for by workers and employers equally, rather than out of income taxes or any other taxes, my grandfather said, "No damn politician will ever dare to scrap my Social Security program."
No damn politician can ever scrap my Social Security program.
No damn politician can mess with the Social Security or take Social Security away. I've heard that. I don't know if it's true or not, but...
Like every major policy, Social Security was what could get through Congress. That meant it wasn't perfect when it was enacted. It didn't include agricultural workers. It didn't include household workers. Gradually, it was amended over the years to make it more comprehensive, to make it more fair, and to make it more equitable for all of our society.
Within a reasonable time, you will receive a card from the Social Security Board. This is destined to become the most popular card in America. It is the most valuable piece of pasteboard you will ever own.
When FDR signed Social Security into law, he saw it as a starting point and said that it would have to be expanded in the future.
In 1939, spousal and survivor benefits were added. That was building on the cornerstone that started in 1935 as purely paying out to beneficiaries in their retirement, because Social Security is a family program.
This insurance is important not only to you, it's important to your wife, your children, your parents.
Among the poorest in our country were widows in particular, who were in desperate need for help. There was a sense that the children who lost a caregiver were in need of help. So there was a strong emotional undercurrent to add benefits to protect those who needed it the most.
Ida Mae Fuller, a registered Republican, received the very first Social Security check ever issued. She received it in January of 1940. That check was for $22.54. She died at the age of 100, and it goes to show you how important Social Security is. You can outlive savings, but you cannot outlive Social Security.
all branches of this government, and I venture to say both of our great parties, can support the general objective of the recommendations I make today. For that objective is the building of a stronger America.
In 1956, disability benefits were added to Social Security. Why did they need it? Because when they were disabled, they couldn't work anymore. They didn't have a regular paycheck coming in.
It made perfect sense to add disability benefits to Social Security. The point of the program was to make sure that we weren't letting people fall into poverty. And people who are working and then become disabled are part of that group of people.
Today, there are millions of Americans and their families who receive disability insurance benefits.
In 1964, when Barry Goldwater ran for president, he, as Republicans had done at that point for 30 years, pushed to privatize Social Security. He wanted people to voluntarily put money into investment accounts.
This is what I'm trying to talk about in Social Security. I'm trying to get the older people and the younger people to realize that when it comes time for them to get their Social Security, they're not going to do too well.
Goldwater, I think, just put one foot after another in his mouth, and that was a big one, where people said, "What are you talking about?"
Ronald Reagan, who was campaigning on behalf of Republican presidential nominee Barry Goldwater, claimed that Social Security was not insurance and that the government was simply deceiving the American people by claiming it was insurance. But of course, it is insurance.
Barry Goldwater ultimately was defeated for president by one of the largest margins ever, and his attacks on Social Security were among the reasons for that.
Perhaps not surprisingly, he lost in a landslide to President Lyndon Johnson. President Richard Nixon in 1972 proposed and signed into law extremely important Social Security amendments, another expansion building on Franklin Roosevelt's cornerstone. Those amendments index Social Security automatically every year so that our benefits keep pace with the cost of living.
Can you imagine if we did not have these automatic COLAs? Without them, benefits would basically be cut every year because of inflation.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
Restoring the weakened Social Security system to solvency may be the single most difficult political issue facing U.S. politicians this winter. Changing demographics, rising benefits, and the effects of recession are already starving the system of cash. Unless some radical correcting is done, the retirement fund will be in deeper trouble in the next few years.
Congress was starting to enact legislation, and they kept asking the Reagan administration for its proposal. Its proposal was so extreme, it set off a firestorm. And to quiet the firestorm, Ronald Reagan proposed a bipartisan commission to develop recommendations. Ronald Reagan named Alan Greenspan the chair of that Social Security Commission. And its mission was to make recommendations to Congress about how best to restore Social Security to short-range and long-range balance.
Economist Alan Greenspan says his National Commission on Social Security Reform probably won't agree on a single set of proposals for curing the system's ills.
Is it true that what it really is boiling down to now is an argument over raising taxes on the one side or lowering benefits on the other?
Yes, I would say that it's a slight, but only a slight, simplification of the basic views, not only of the Commission, which I'm involved with, and the Congress, but it really is the American people.
I think the key word in this should be compromise. You know, this is the only plan in town. It's easy to oppose the only plan in town, but this is a sound, balanced, fair proposal.
Senator Tom Harkin, take one.
I'm a retired United States Senator Tom Harkin from the state of Iowa. I remember that both Senator Dole and Senator Moynihan on our side pulled us together to hammer out an agreement with the administration to finally get it passed. So everybody gave a little bit, and it stood the test of time.
So the 1983 amendments on Social Security made sense overall. They were a compromise. If you look at who negotiated that, you had the very strong Democratic Speaker of the House, Tip O'Neill, and you had the very persuasive Republican President, Ronald Reagan.
We had a Republican president and a Democrat Speaker of the House that said, this is such a good program, people depend on it, we've got to save it. If they were alive today, they'd be very proud of what they did. I'm very proud of what they did, and I hope we can duplicate that before Social Security has the same problems they had in 1983.
Not all deals made in Washington are compromises, but this one on Social Security apparently is, because neither side got all it wanted, and each had to stomach a few things it very much did not want.
Raising the age of retirement is a benefit reduction. They didn't talk about it that way at the time because you know what they said? It's not going to hit people for 20 or 30 years from now. They'll never know what hit them.
And as I remember it, I was opposed to raising the retirement age. But we all compromised, and it was phased in, as you know, over a long period of time. Social Security has been secure ever since.
Our elderly need no longer fear that the checks they depend on will be stopped or reduced. Today, these amendments reaffirm Franklin Roosevelt's commitment that Social Security must always provide a secure and stable base so that older Americans may live in dignity. It is signed.
In 2005, George W. Bush, starting his second term, feeling he had a mandate, decided to take on the so-called third rail of American politics, Social Security.
Social Security reform must offer personal savings accounts to younger workers who want them.
We were in our boardroom, our staff, watching him come to the podium the day after he was reelected and claiming victory. And the first thing out of his mouth was, I have earned political capital in this campaign. I'm going to use that political capital to privatize Social Security. We were shocked.
And he did it in a very controversial way. Change it fundamentally, where your benefit will be based on how well you invest money.
He toured the country, 30 town hall meetings in 30 days, trying to sell his plan to the American public to privatize Social Security. We were on the ground wherever he appeared with a grassroots concerted effort to stop that.
So George W. Bush did a photo op in West Virginia in front of the filing cabinets that contain those trillions of dollars of Treasury bonds and tried to say, hey, see, they're just pieces of paper.
What is very important is to make sure that in the future that there's real assets for retirees.
And there was no cash. Well, of course there was no cash. There was trillions of dollars in the trust fund. It wouldn't make sense to have that sitting around in cash.
So he made a very good effort to sell it, and it bombed. The more he went around the country explaining it, the more he scared the daylights out of people.
And the American people didn't buy it. And even though there were Republicans in charge of Congress, the privatization proposal did not even get a vote.
You know, there's a reason why there's not a private alternative to Social Security, because you simply can't buy the protection that it's able to provide you. I think about this year in which Social Security turns 90 has been, at least for the stock market, particularly tumultuous.
The stock market closed out the week with the worst day of the year so far. The Dow losing 748 points.
Social Security is designed to be completely insulated from the throes of the stock market and for the throes of the economy.
Plenty of people think that if they could just take their Social Security contributions and invest them in the stock market, they would be better off. They are completely wrong.
I'm Nancy Lamond, the Executive Vice President and Chief Advocacy and Engagement Officer at AARP. The bottom line is Social Security is more than a retirement check. It's a lifeline. Its importance cannot be overstated. Over the last 90 years, it has lifted entire generations out of poverty, helping older Americans live with independence and dignity after a lifetime of hard work.
Janice Farabee, author, speaker, female empowerment expert. So I was 62 when I started collecting. I'll be 70 in September, so 8 years ago. My benefit goes mainly towards my rent. A cut to Social Security would be very challenging for me. I do have several friends from high school that do rely completely on Social Security. For them, it is a lifeline, it's essential.
Social Security is critical to women because historically, women have had to take off work to be caregivers. Women have also faced gender discrimination, and their wages have been lower than men.
Without Social Security, we would have no income. Susie was diagnosed in 2000 with MS and then had a stroke in 2020. Since then, she's been diagnosed with dementia. It never occurred to me that caregiving was going to be part of our lives. Now, we have pretty good Social Security. Fortunately, our house is paid for. We couldn't do it if that weren't the case.
Social Security is also crucial for communities of color. There is a huge wealth gap, and communities of color have not been able to build the same amount of wealth as white counterparts. Social Security provides that stability, it provides that income that is needed, and it is something that, you know, without it, we would see so many millions more in poverty today.
Social Security is one of the most dependable things that we have.
Mean the world to me when I do start receiving it, and anything less than what I'm expecting, I won't be able to live within my budget.
AARP hears from millions of Americans 50 and older. They see Social Security as a commitment they kept by showing up, working hard, and paying in with every paycheck so they can retire with dignity.
My name is Bill Monahan. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I have a full-time job, and I'll be collecting Social Security any minute now.
So don't you hate it when you have to, you're forced to reset a password? You know, it says, please enter first 5 digits of your Social Security number. Then it says, please enter the last 4 digits of your Social Security number.
Social Security is important to me, primarily because I've paid into it all these years, and I'd like to get what's coming to me. And yeah, who knows what the future holds.
To get your biggest monthly Social Security check, you gotta wait till you're 70 to start collecting. So I gotta wait 35 more years.
Yeah, I plan to wait till I'm 70 so I can get the maximum benefit. As long as I'm still capable of working, I'm going to work as long as I can. So as long as I'm able to, then might as well hang in there till the bitter end, I guess, you know.
All right, that does it for me. Thank you, guys.
The Social Security Administration is planning to cut 7,000 workers. On Friday, agency leaders said they were doing it to reduce the bloated workforce.
What is going on today is more dangerous to Social Security than all the attacks it's been under for 90 years.
Staff at the Social Security Administration has been slashed. Services are being cut. The website has been crashing.
The Washington Post reports the Social Security Administration website crashed 4 times in 10 days this month.
No wonder the public is alarmed and confused.
One of the things they're saying is that they're not going to attack Social Security, and yet all the actions they're taking is attacking Social Security.
This year, we've seen a grassroots movement rise up with a message that's loud and clear: hands off Social Security.
Friday night, dozens of people rallied in front of the Social Security building in Baltimore, fighting to keep their jobs.
Chicago is a union town.
And what you're seeing on the streets now are the people saying, remember whose program this is.
We've seen rallies, we've seen protests.
There were protests that took place in all 50 states in more than 1,200 locations in terms of these hands-off rallies.
We've seen people show up in record numbers at town halls with members of Congress.
What's your last name, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Would you like some assistance putting on your wristband?
People are worried, they're concerned, they're confused. We're trying to shed a little light on what's happening. They want to know what their member of Congress is doing to protect these programs.
You know, we're coming up on the 90th anniversary of Social Security. When it passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Please give a warm Oregon welcome to Max Richmond.
It's important that some of the facts are separated from the myths. There aren't people 150, 200, 300 years old collecting Social Security. That's not true. There are so many misunderstandings about it that it's an entitlement. You know, it's not an entitlement. What is it? An earned benefit. You paid for it while you were working.
Max, thank you. Send me an email. I'll be back in DC on Monday.
I don't see entitlement as a bad word. I'm entitled to it because I've been paying into it since the 60s, you know?
I don't take Social Security yet, but it is going to contribute a lot to my retirement. I mean, do we want to go back to bread lines and such? I don't think we do.
We are worried, and I think Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid are some of our greatest accomplishments, and the fact that they're in jeopardy is really a big red flag.
It says a lot about a country, how you take care of your people, somebody said, you know? So it needs to stay if we want to be America.
I'm going to turn it over to Representative Delaney and her fellow panelists.
My colleague and friend, a good friend to both my husband John and myself, is Congressman John Larson, and he really is an icon, and he came here from Connecticut because he so cared about this issue.
Social Security is the largest insurance plan
in the nation, not just for pensions, but for spouses, widows, children, and disability. You all know how important this program is.
All across the political spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, 80-90% support keeping this program and improving it, enhancing it, as the two representatives here have been trying to do.
Social Security is part of the fabric of America's bargain with itself. It is a contract, a compact between working Americans and retired and disabled Americans. You work, you pay Social Security taxes, and then when you need it, it's there for you. Some younger people have been convinced it won't be there for them. I've seen the actuarial data. It will be there for them. It just needs to be tweaked to make sure that it is there just as fully for them as it has been for my generation.
We have a social insurance program that's worked for 90 years, and to maintain that for at least another 90 years would be a very important goal for our country.
The American people have time and time again expressed their love for Social Security. I don't think any government program has that level of public support of Social Security does.
It's really incredible that we've had Social Security for 90 years, and it's something I'm really proud of, and I'm proud that our country has.
Reaching 90 years is a powerful reminder of what Social Security has accomplished and what it stands for. And as we celebrate this legacy, we're also looking ahead. We will never stop fighting to protect the Social Security payments Americans have earned.
Shortly before her death, Frances Perkins said, "Social Security is so firmly embedded in the American psychology today that no politician, no political party could possibly destroy this act and still maintain our democratic system."
It's grown to be very much a social contract between the people of this country and their government, and it's part of the social fabric of America, and it must be retained, and it will be retained.
I'm excited that Social Security is turning 90 years old.
A cake with 90 candles would probably be dangerous, but I think that the 90-year success of Social Security should be celebrated in any way possible.
Happy 90th birthday, Social Security. Here's to the next 90 years.
Happy anniversary, Social Security.
Happy birthday. 90 is a good age.
Right. Happy 90th birthday, Social Security. Many more years to come.
We have to save it. We have to secure it. We have to make it live for future generations.